Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Deislayers, and in this video, we're going to discuss and review a classic weapon from way back in the days of Destiny 1, and I know that's a fan favorite of mine, just the same way that is probably yours, and it's called the Monte Carlo. For those of you that never played Destiny 1, the Monte Carlo is an exotic auto rifle that is fantastic in so many ways, not only because it can flinch, which it still does by the way in Destiny 2, but it can do so many more things in this game, and it can be utilized for a wide variety of playstyles and a wide variety of builds. On top of all that stuff, it can do some very unique things, including some very unique TTK stats, which we're all going to get into in just a couple of seconds. But before we do so, what you guys have got to understand is how to get your hands on this beauty. Unfortunately, my friends, the way in which you get this thing is all RNG, as it can drop at the end of crucible games, at the end of vanguard strikes, at the end of public events. Heck, it can even drop from a random Dreg if you just happen to kill that bad boy. To you I say, let's hope and pray that RNGesus is on our side, and to make sure that we're going to skewer a couple of enemies, because I don't know if you've seen this thing, man, wouldn't that be awesome if we could just freaking melee these guys with this weapon? Oh, that'd be so dope. Who knows, maybe Bungie will do that, and maybe they won't. But in the meantime, the only thing we have to do is just to simply sit back, relax, eviscerate that notification button, and let's jump right into the video. It's at this point in time that I would normally like to go over all the weapons' TTK stats. But before we can do this, you guys have got to understand the playstyles in which this Monte Carlo can cater to. And might I add that that is a wide variety, regardless of whether or not you're a warlock, titan, or hunter, as it can be utilized on all the classes. To figure this out, all we gotta do is look at the weapon's primary exotic perk, and that perk is called Monte Carlo Method, which states that dealing damage with this weapon reduces your melee cooldown and grants a chance to fully charge your melee ability with each and every kill. Now I can't say for 100% certainty as to how often this is actually proccing, but if you were to ask me, I would say that this perk is probably proccing around say 80% of the time, and that is not an exaggeration my friends, because I'm getting my melee back on a very regular basis. Taking one teeny tiny step back, I just want to take a moment so that you guys can think about as to how exactly this might be used on a titan, a warlock, and a hunter. For example, let's just take a striker titan, and as you all know, they have a shoulder charge ability, and that is then classified as a melee ability. And so with this Monte Carlo, every single time that you're at least inflicting damage, that melee ability is recharging back faster. And not just this, as soon as you happen to get that kill, you still have a very high chance to recharge the ability completely once you do so. Following this exact same logic and reasoning, these exact same things can potentially be done on say a warlock stormcaller with the rising storm ability, or maybe even an arc strider hunter with its uppercut. And so in this sense, you guys can really see and understand as to how all these abilities, aka melee abilities, are going to be recharged that much faster, and when they are so, that means that you have a wider variety of types of situations and engagements, or rather environments in which you can attack in. For these traits and characteristics alone, the Monte Carlo is easily worth its exotic status in Destiny 2, and so you're probably thinking to yourself now, okay, well, what about this weapon's lethality? That, Deislayers, is $1 million question to ask yourself, and so right off the bat, every single time that you're getting that first kill, this thing only needs 8 crits in one body to attain the weapon's optimal TTK at 0.8 seconds. In association with this, the weapon then needs 14 body shots to then get its body shot TTK at 1.3 seconds. However, in order to get those types of TTKs, the weapon has to do somewhere in between 23 points of damage per crit and 14 points of damage in the body. And so then when we take 0.8 and 1.3 and divide by 2, the weapon's average time to kill is then 1.1 seconds. As you guys can see from right there, that's all the weapon's information that I've just said. And so also keep in mind that these computations were done with a Guardian at 8 resilience, aka 196 points of health. Now just to kind of put that into perspective for you, remember that all 150 rate of fire hand cannons have that exact same optimal time to kill at 0.8 seconds. And so to you, this is very important to note, because the Monte Carlo then is extremely competitive with all those types of weapons. And that also means that for the 140 rate of fire hand cannons, their optimal TTK is 0.87 seconds. And so in this respect, the Monte Carlo can easily hold its own in the crucible. But there is another perk that this weapon has that's unique to only it, and it can actually increase the weapon's TTK even more so, and that one particular perk is called Markov Chain. Markov Chain states that this weapon gains increased damage from melee kills and kills with the weapon itself, while melee kills grant ammo from the weapon. In other words, this perk right here is almost identical to Swashbuckler, because Markov Chain stacks not just once, twice, or 3 times, but all the way up to 5 times, just the same way that Swashbuckler does. And the main difference here is that as soon as you happen to get a kill with your melee ability, the weapon's ammo is going to be refilled instantly. With this knowledge, you should be asking yourself 2 more questions. And the first one is, what exactly is happening with the weapon's TTKs, both for its optimal and body shot TTKs respectively, but not just this, how easy is it really able to obtain each one of these stacks times 1, times 2, times 3, and potentially times 5 Markov Chain? To answer one of these 2 questions, what I want to do is I just want to simply put all the weapons TTK stats right there on screen. And so what you guys are seeing is on the left hand side, Markov Chain times 1, and the center Markov Chain times 2, and on the right hand side, Markov Chain times 3. Please note that the weapon's optimal time to kill with Markov Chain times 1 is the exact same thing as the weapon's base TTK. And so in this respect, regardless of whether or not you happen to have 0 kills with the weapon or 1 kill, that optimal TTK isn't going to change in the slightest. But with Markov Chain times 2 and Markov Chain times 3, that's when the weapon's optimal TTK is changing by 0.1 seconds to be at 0.7 seconds. In correlation with this, the weapon's body shot TTK from Markov Chain times 1, times 2, and times 3 is progressively getting better every single time. And so this then means that the weapon's average time to kill is still getting better with each and every single time that you happen to proc Markov Chain. And that then tells you that the weapon's overall ease of use is getting better and better and better as you happen to chain more aspects of Markov Chain. But now we come full circle back to our second question, and that is as to how easy that this really is to proc times 1, times 2, times 3, and potentially times 5. Based upon my extensive use of the weapon, I would say that Markov Chain times 1 and Markov Chain times 2 is actually quite easy to do, but doing times 3, times 4, and times 5 is exceptionally difficult if you're only using the weapon and the weapon by itself. The main reason why I state that humongous and enormous and colossal if is because every single time that you happen to get a melee kill with a weapon, you instantly proc Markov Chain times 5. And this then means that the weapon's optimal TTK and body shot TTKs respectively get even better. So much to the point that I think that you're going to be surprised by what you see, and you guys can see that right there on screen. Just to give you guys a side-by-side comparison analysis, on the left we happen to have the weapon's base TTK stats, while on the right we happen to have Markov Chain times 5. And with this, you're going to see that the weapon's optimal TTK is at 0.6 seconds, and its body shot TTK is at 1 second on the dot. In turn, this is then doing 30 points of damage per crit and 19 points of damage per body shot. And once again, all these computations were done with a Guardian at 8 resilience, aka 196 points of health. Remember that the Luna's Howl and the Not Forgotten had an optimal TTK before the nerf to be at 0.67 seconds, and they were the most dominant weapons in the entire game. And so this then means to you that this Markov Chain times 5 on the Monte Carlo can beat those TTKs by 0.07 seconds. If it wasn't already clear enough, I think it's safe to say that when you happen to have Markov Chain times 5 on this beauty by simply getting 1 melee kill, your next kill is then going to incur this phenomenal and glorious and also spectacular optimal TTK, meaning that enemy guardians are gonna be a little bit salty. But despite that, you're probably also wondering, okay, well, how is this weapon going to become even more effective? And the way in which it does so is by the other weapon's perks. Ensuing the Monte Carlo method and Markov Chain, this weapon also happens to have composite stock, high caliber rounds, and fluted barrel. Pretty much what you gotta know about these 3 perks is that with composite stock and fluted barrel, those 2 perks are then going to increase the weapon's handling and stability stats significantly, meaning that this thing is going to become much more accurate, and we'll see this in the weapon's base stats in just a couple of seconds. But what I also want to mention here is that with high caliber rounds, that's not only going to increase the weapon's effective range by +5, but it's also going to add a significant and colossal amount of flinch to enemy guardians, making them miss their shots while you're landing more and more of yours. Anytime that you can get this to occur, I think you can definitely say that this thing right here is going to annihilate, decimate, and eradicate enemy guardians. But the only way in which it does so is if it's going to land those critical headshots and this proc Markov Chain times 1 all the way up to Markov Chain times 5, and the way in which you can see this the best is by looking at the weapon's base stats. Deislayers, I ain't gonna lie, there is not a single base stat here that is muff cabbage trash shenanigans, and rather is just simply spectacular on so many levels, because this thing's range stat is at 56 out of 100, has a marvelous stability stat at 70 out of 100, a handling stat at 84, almost making it seem as if it's got snapshot sights, a marvelous overall reload speed at 81, a great magazine size at 43, and a pretty darn good aim assistance at 50, followed by a beautiful recoil direction at 80, and a very controllable bounce intensity going to the right at 20. What these base stats tell me, just the same way that they should tell you, is that this weapon's effective range is surprising beyond all belief, and so to you I say, take shots at distances that you normally wouldn't take other shots with, because this weapon's damage fall off at those distances is very minute, and that then means that you're still going to get a very fast optimal TTK at those ranges, and so to you I encourage you to do so. Following this exact same wavelength, you're going to be able to hit those shots at those longer distances even better because the weapon's stability stat is so high. But then when you also couple that with the weapon's recoil direction, you're once again going to be able to land more crits at those longer distances, and thus that's then going to allow you to get the optimal TTK with Markov chain times 5 at 0.6 seconds that much more frequently, and that means that we've all just gotten an A+ in our financial statement, meaning more money in the bank, baby. As far as all auto rifles go, I can't say that they're quite back yet, but for the Monte Carlo, I can say with 110% certainty and that there is no doubt in my mind that this bad boy is back and it's better than ever, ready to shred some enemy guardians, just like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. For those of you that don't have RNG on your side, then by all means, I'm going to be sending you guys as much RNG luck as I possibly can so then you can finally get your hands on this and try this monster out in the Crucible. But for those of you who do happen to have it, that means the RNG was certainly on your side, and that also means that you now know what this weapon is going to be like in PvP. After testing it out, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and whether or not you like the weapon, you don't, you think that I'm spot on, or you think I'm completely off, and no matter what you guys say, you can always know that I'm going to respect your opinions, and that is something I can guarantee. Lastly, be sure to watch the newest, check the latest, and share, comment, like on social media because you are the greatest. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now, Deislayers. And as always, GG TNT.